Hi, in this lesson, I want us to look at what we can actually do about landslides, how we can actually deal with the problem, and particularly to look at issues here in Wales. The picture you're looking at the moment was taken, they're on the valley in February 2020. You can see that some of this hillside, a lot of which is all mine waste, has failed and slid down the valley. Now, these tips were assessed as being stable maybe 20, 30 years ago. Clearly, something has changed. Perhaps this is what we're looking at is one of the effects of climate change. With increased rainfall patterns, tips that we thought in the past were stable may now be unstable. Anyway, if we think about what we can actually do about landslides, the first job, and one of the most important ones, is to be able to recognise where they're likely to happen. What are the areas that are at risk? For this, we need to think back to what we looked at in the previous lesson about what the causes were. Things like the shape of the land, what we call the geomorphology, what the geology is, what rock types are we looking at, what weaknesses do those rock types have, what's the land used for, how do people use that land, and always with landslides, hydrogeology, the water, what's going on with the water. You can see on this image a couple of examples of satellite imagery being used to try and recognise these things happening perhaps in remoter areas. But these issues do affect us here in Wales. If you look in your Theme 8 booklets on pages 26 and 27, you'll see some data relating to a landslip in the Taff Valley. This landslip, called the Taran landslip, created some problems when the A470, the road that goes from Cardiff up to Merthyr Tydfil, was being built. Many of you will have actually driven along this road. You know that it's a dual carriageway, it's a fast, busy road. Therefore, it being disturbed by a landslide really wasn't an option. So, as part of the building of the road, geologists had to really understand what was going on with this landslip and then think about what we could do about it. So, what I'd like you to do is, using the information we talked about in the previous lesson, I'd like you to analyse the potential problems here. What problems might the Taran landslip cause, and what might be the key factors behind the geology that make it a danger? And then what could we do about it? How could we sort this landslide out so it's going to be stable enough to build an important road like the A470? Okay, press pause now, have a go at those questions. See what you can come up with. Okay, let's see what you've worked out. So looking at this data, we start with the geological map and working out why this might be a problem. The first question was to say what hazards might be caused. Clearly, damaging the new road is a major one. If that moves, if it starts to crack the road, makes it uneven, it'll be dangerous. But also the fact that the landslide here comes right down to the river. If the River Taff gets blocked there, water will build up behind it. You can see that we've got villages like Merthyr Vale very, very close to this landslide. That could be flooded. I also asked you then to work out what 4 different factors would have had as an effect on this landslip. What would have caused it to be triggered? We've got these 4 different factors. Firstly, rock type. These rocks are relatively weak. Coal isn't a particularly strong sediment. Sandstones and shales are going to be weak, particularly the shales. Also, if you look at these rocks, they're inclined fairly gently, but they're still inclined in towards the middle of the valley. That means if they are going to slip, there's somewhere for them to go. We also have a fault here, a break in the rock. That can trigger an earthquake. Earthquakes can be the start of a landslide. They can get things moving. We said always that water has to be considered. You can see that the water table here, so where the rock becomes saturated, is above the slip surface. So there's going to be water along that slip surface to lubricate it. And finally, the glacial deposits and the river down at the bottom of this landslide, they can be easily eroded. The river can erode these glacial deposits and remove that material at the bottom of the landslide, allowing it to move again. So, what can we do? These methods that are listed in your booklet on page 27 give us some ideas. Some of them, though, aren't always going to be an option. Not building, for example, at the bottom of a landslide. Well, that's very nice, but the A470, for example, there was nowhere else for it to go. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try and decide which of these things will be most appropriate for a landslide like the Taran landslide. Not all of these are going to work. Which ones do you think could be most effective? Do we go for reshaping the slope like they've done with the terraces in Japan? Do we go to try and remove some of the water out of the slope? Or do we go for the sort of major engineering works, as you can see in the diagram near the bottom of page 27? Write down your ideas to answer question C. Okay. We can see from this that there are landslide hazards here in Wales, and it's crucial that we manage them. And engineering geologists have a key role in identifying potential hazards, monitoring those hazards, and designing solutions to prevent them happening in the future. Quite a few of my ex-students earn quite a good living doing exactly that. Anyway, next time we need to start thinking about drawing some of these ideas together and looking at one particular hazardous event. I'll see you then.